Hello guys, welcome to another video. Singularity, Rimuru x Arifureta, by Aestics. Chapter 3. Worthless Doe. A rocky hallway appeared in the edge of the last floor, activated by Orcus Ring. On the end of road is a bright light. It's the sun, both Hajime and Yu shouted. As for me, it's not that big of a deal to be honest, and so I just quietly watched as the couples did their thing. Must have been hard for them. I unconsciously and softly smiled as I thought so while watching them. Hajime was stuck there for months and Yu for centuries. Feeling the surface pleasures must have been very good. It really did feel like I gained two new younger siblings. We got out of the end of the passageway, finding ourselves in a grand canyon. But this isn't so bad. Seeing the real sun shine for the first time since resurrection, it's tranquil. I immediately noticed something wrong. The mana in the air is dispersing. With my colossal amounts and supremely high quality of energy, along with my status as an ultimate skill holder, it doesn't even make a difference. However, Yu and Hajime might have to expend a lot of mana to activate magics. At least 10x the usual output. Some monsters eventually tried to attack us, which Hajime voluntarily massacred in order to test his new weapons. The newly reborn revolvers, Donner and Schlagen. Bigger, better, longer, cooler, stronger. Every bit of it was upgraded, and it even gained a new sister for a dual firearm-wielding fighting style. Having had more combat experience and techniques developed thanks to his training under me, he can now reload midair, and his accuracy increased by an extraordinarily lot. The secret to it was using the treasure Tova, a ring-type artifact that can store objects and summon stored objects within a separate space. Its size was unknown, but it was relatively big, as even after stuffing in all his weapons and materials, it was still not full. Hajime directly summons the bullets above the exposed cylinders as he reloads, letting them fall through the hole as he completes the process 200% faster. He looked back at Yu, then me. It seemed he noticed too. Finally noticed? The area possesses a mana dispersing property that dissipates spells. It seems to stretch throughout the whole gorge. It can, however, be overcome if you use a huge amount of mana. Rimuru. It seems so, yeah. Other than that, I'd heard the monsters in Risen Gorge were ferocious and brutal, but this is too easy. The monsters in the abyss makes these monsters look like pests. Hajime. After discussing for a while, we finally started to move. Hajime pulled out his motorcycle, Stife, and hopped in along with Yu. As for me, I wasn't gonna lose to my student, you know? And so, I had Raphael make me something. Of course, the general design and functions were invented by me. It was a skateboard, made with high quality and purity magisteel synthesized with Azantium. It had a beautiful matte black color and stretched a meter long. It was designed for hovering, directly utilizing the ultimate skill Ural's law manipulation to freely manipulate its gravity, velocity, momentum and inertia. As such, it has no wheels. Basically, a flying skateboard. I can also sit on it and have Raphael autopilot for me, and it can transform into a comfortable sofa made of soft fabric in case I want to doze off. It was going to be my main method of transportation. After all that, the group are now traversing the gorge. Their goal is to look around if the rumors about a labyrinth being hidden down here were true, as they head to the forest. They could easily go over the walls of the ravine, but judging by how weak the monsters were, it was clear the gorge wasn't the labyrinth itself. Which meant there must have been a proper entrance somewhere. They'd have to search the gorge eventually, so there was no reason not to do it now. Risen Gorge ran from east to west with almost no north-south variation. There were almost no side routes either, so it was quite difficult to get lost. As there was no worry of losing their way, Hajime drove Stife forward with Rimuru following them at equal pace as they looked for anything resembling a labyrinth entrance. He had transmuted a machine to the bottom of the motorcycle that smoothed out any ground before the wheels hit it. Normally, an American-style bike would have a hard time dealing with such rough terrain, but thanks to his transmutation they were able to drive through the valley floor smoothly. They were riding through the wind, basking in the light of the sun, and inhaling the smells of the surface world. This time, it was Rimuru dispatching the monsters. He used law manipulation to exert a powerful force on any matter in his line of vision, applying directionality to the attraction and repulsive forces of the planet to crush or rip apart the monsters, making it seem as if they were disintegrating to dust. This went on for a while as Rimuru sensed a monster in the distance accompanied by a ferocious roar. It was more intimidating than the others. At the very least, it was stronger than the monsters they'd faced in the gorge so far. With their current pace, they'd run into it in about 30 seconds. It was a two-headed T-Rex, but what was even more surprising was the rabbit-eared girl hopping to and from beneath it, desperately trying to escape its clutches. Startled, Hajime stopped stiff and gazed at the girl curiously along with Yu and Rimuru, who had dumbfounded expressions. You? A rabbitman? Rimuru, bunny girl? You? I get that, but why is she here? Are bunny people the type that live in gorges? Rimuru? Not as far as I know. You, then, is she one of those criminals that get thrown down here as punishment? I read that Risen Gorge is a famous execution ground. Hajime? Bad rabbit? You? The trio had a casual conversation while the rabbit was desperately running for its life. Not one of them seemed interested in saving her. If it was Hajime of the past, he would have very likely tried to save her. Even Rimuru was the same. He lost so much in the last war that he became so morally gray and had run out of fucks to give. They thought saving her would have been more trouble than it's worth. It was then that the bunny girl spotted Yu and Hajime. She got blown back by the two-headed T-Rex and crashed into a nearby boulder, but she recovered quickly and scuttled behind it, staring at the trio changingly all the while. The T-Rex brought its claws down again, this time blowing the entire boulder away along with her. She tumbled backward, using that momentum to run as fast as possible. Right toward the trio. There was quite a bit of distance between them still, but the amplified echo of the gorge let the bunny girl's words reach them. Finally, I finally found you, please shaba me, eek, it's gonna kill me, I'm gonna die, shaba me, please, I'm begging you. Tears streamed down her face as she ran with all her might. The two-headed T-Rex chased after her, intent on devouring its prey. At the rate things were going, she was destined to be dinosaur food before she ever got to the trio. Still surprised and amused at the funny sight, Rimuru took one look at the T-Rex and disintegrated it entirely with a repulsive force equivalent to what a massive star exerts. She, finally, found us. That's an odd choice of words, Hajime? Yeah, seems like a pain. Let's go, you, slurp, Rimuru. The trio then proceeded to turn away. Even Rimuru was just casually drinking milk tea pulled out from God knows where while floating beside Stife in his skateboard with a relaxed manner. The bunny girl was dumbfounded at seeing its chaser disintegrated out of nowhere in an instant, but she nevertheless got up and began running at full speed towards them. She's coming towards us. Deal with her, you guys, Rimuru. Hajime looked back and saw the bunny girl running towards them. Her face was a mess of tears, and her lady bits were shamelessly exposed for all to see. But even then, any normal guy wouldn't have hesitated to save her. Hell no, get away from me. However, our esteemed Hajime simply wheeled Stife back a bit to avoid colliding with the bunny girl. Still screaming in surprise, she fell to the ground a few inches in front of Hajime with a sickening thud. What a pathetic rabbit. You said such harsh words nonchalantly, her head peeking out from behind Hajime's shoulder to watch. The bunny girl got to its feet, her face still a mess of tears, as he tried to jump into Rimuru in an attempt to hug and cling to him, but thump, rabbit, an invisible barrier stopped her and she fell on her ass. Naturally, it was the universal barrier of Uriel, the Lord of Vows. Raphael was the one who activated it, and it seems she wasn't having it with this rabbit too. The universal barrier had an infinitely expansive convergent space between each layer as it was derived from unlimited imprisonment. It was absolutely impossible for some rabbit to penetrate it. The rabbit fell into its butt, her teary face still confused. At least she understood that Rimuru activated some barriers, that's why she complained to him. Why did you block me off? Isn't this supposed to be the moment where the helpless pretty girl is comforted by the Prince of Dreams, rabbit? In case you guys don't know, after Rimuru's true dragon evolution, he was more recognizable as a handsome teen. I think it was in volume 17 or 18 where he and Sue was mistaken as some brotherly siblings. Of course, still androgynous. He isn't true dragon here, just his appearance. Yikes, the trio thought, cringing. The rabbit was spouting absolute nonsense. Yuck. Just look at you. We obviously have no reason to save some annoying rabbit we don't even know, Rimuru mercilessly said. An instant rejection. How can you say that? Isn't there a shred of goodness left in your heart? You wouldn't really leave an innocent beauty like me to die, would you, rabbit? What kind of person has the gall to call themselves a beauty? If you compare beauty standards, I think I can confidently say I'm more beautiful than you, Rimuru. Wah, rabbit, you heard me. Rimuru, it was fairly true, Yu was also a world-class beauty, but even she pales in comparison to Rimuru's, who's long since surpassed the realm of Asian charms. He can be described as bewitching, even, despite his obviously still teen appearance. So, it was true that if you ask anyone who was more beautiful, Rimuru would be the answer 11 out of 10. Then if you listen to my request, I'll do any one thing you ask. She blushed as she did a pose that emphasizes her fairly huge cleavage, barely covered with some dirty rags of clothing. How shamelessly bold. Nah, I'm good. And what's with the pose? You ain't even my type, and did you honestly expect me to be attracted to some lump of fat, Rimuru? Crack. HHHH, how dare you, rabbit, I'm daring, Rimuru. The rabbit fell down to the ground, eyes full of tears as her pride in her beauty got absolutely pummeled. Even you, who felt envious because of her own lacking in that specific part, cannot help but feel bad for the rabbit. Had the image not been ruined by the tears and snot running down her face, it would have actually been perfect. She hadn't been lying when she called herself a beauty either. Beneath all the grime and tears, one could tell she really was quite pretty. Any normal guy would have fallen for it even if they knew it was a trick. Unfortunately for her, Rimuru and Hajime were anything but normal. Besides, Rimuru's had lots of beautiful chicks simping for him 24/7 in his previous demon lord life. Physical appearances are now irrelevant. At that point, the trio began to leave. Rimuru was sitting in his floating skateboard with his legs elegantly crossed as Hajime started stife. She must have sensed the flow of mana because the bunny girl instantly hopped back up and ran, to Hajime this time, before they could leave. You're not getting away from me. For a bunny girl, she was surprisingly hardy. Bruh. Rimuru. Thank you very much for saving me earlier. My name is Shay. I'm a member of the Rabbitman tribe. Howlia. I know this is presumptuous of me, but could you please save my family as well, please? I'm begging you, and annoyingly pushy as well. Hajime gave the desperate bunny girl a sidelong glance, then sighed heavily. Of course, the first thing they'd run into after escaping hell would be this nuisance. Seeing his exasperated expression, the bunny girl, Shay, fretfully repeated her plea even louder, and louder, and louder. At some point, she switched targets from Hajime to Yu, and Yu to Rimuru once again. Please, you have to, I'm begging you. You have to save my family are in danger and they need help. By the end she was practically shouting. It seemed her family was in dire straits as well, as she was kneeling on the ground. Damn, that's crazy, but I don't remember asking, Rimuru. Huh? Wah, Shay. Yeah? You never know. Give it your all, and maybe you'll be able to save them yourself. Good luck, I guess. Alright, let's go. Rimuru said some generic words of encouragement, if they could even be called that. I'll never let you get away. Despite the humiliation, she still refuses to give up. She clung to Hajime, but he slapped her. Like a zombie, she once again got back up. The hell? This woman some zombie or something, Hajime? At some point, Rimuru began to grow impatient as his demon lord Lord's ambition, started to flare, albeit very tiny. However, to the rabbit woman exposed to it, it exuded enough coercion and she began to suffocate. Say, what if I were to be the one to annihilate your race? The rabbit, Shay, gasped in both shock and fear with a deathly pallor as she saw Rimuru with a crazed grin. He could just decimate the entire forest. Due to some tragic circumstances, he was responsible for the destruction of some nations in the cardinal world, increasing his kill count by hundreds of millions. Consigning a race that numbers a few hundred-ish to extinction is nothing hard for him. It was oddly alluring if you look at it another way. The grin gave off a twisted sort of beauty. An intriguing scenery that bears a devilish charm. However, all it did for Shay was fill her with dread. It caused all her resolution to save her family to waver. It was an instinctive reaction, a biologically ingrained trait to living things for their own survival, so she can't actually be blamed. But the fact that she was overwhelmed with fear didn't change, and she hated the fact that fear caused her determination to shake. It was pathetic. She knew as she saw the look in Rimuru's eyes. If she really didn't shut up, he'll kill her or her entire family. Sensei. Let's hear her out. You unexpectedly came to her rescue. Both Rimuru and Hajime turned to her in surprise, their face full of questions. It was understandable as it was totally out of character. However, Yu seemed serious, so they nonetheless reluctantly agreed. Shay was so surprised that these two listened to just a few words of Yu, but immediately began to explain things. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I'm Shay, the daughter of the Howlia tribe chieftain. The truth is, Shay. In essence, this was what Shay's story boiled down to. Shay's tribe, the Howlia, were a member of the rabbitman subspecies of beastmen. There were a few hundred of them, and they lived in a village hidden deep within the Haltina woods. They were considered weak by many others of their kind. In general, they were a kind, peace-loving race that treated the whole of their village like family and cared deeply for each other. Most of them were also very good-looking, but unlike elves which were renowned for their beauty, the rabbitmen were more known for their cuteness. Many collectors in the Holshire Empire coveted them for that very trait, so they were a popular target for slave traders. Among those rabbitmen, one of the tribes, the Howlia, had given birth to a strange girl. Rabbitmen generally had dark blue hair, but this girl was born with very light blue hair. Furthermore, she was an anomaly among beastmen, as she had mana running through her body. What was even more shocking was that she could directly manipulate that mana, and even use a certain special magic like most monsters. This, of course, caused a huge uproar within the village. This was unheard of in the entire history of rabbitmen. No, in beastman history as a whole. Under normal circumstances, anyone with the same power as monsters would have been persecuted and ostracized. But this girl had been born to the one race that valued family above all else. The one race that treated an entire village of hundreds as one big family. Which was why the thought of abandoning her never even crossed any of the Hala's minds. Q. Dom Toretto's theme, if he has one. However, the forest was home to its own country, Verbergen, which was located deep within the sea of trees. If any of their ruling class learned of the girl's existence, she would surely be executed. Such harshness was indicative of just how badly the beastmen hated monsters. And so, the Howlia decided to raise the girl in secret. 16 years passed. However, a few days ago, someone from the outside learned of the girl's existence. In order to escape Verbergen's retribution, the entire village decided to flee the forest. With no set destination in mind, they decided first to head for the mountains in the north. Their reasoning being that they would be able to live off the land there. The mountains were harsh, but it was still better than being sold off as slaves in the Holshire Empire or executed by Verbergen. However, the very empire they were afraid of destroyed all of their plans. By an extreme stroke of misfortune, they ran into Imperial soldiers right outside the forest. There was no way to know if they were on patrol, or just on a routine training exercise, but in the face of a battalion-sized army they had no choice but to flee to the south. The men stayed behind to give the women and children more time to escape, but the gentle rabbitmen couldn't hold a candle to the battle-hardened soldiers of the Holshire Empire, and in no time at all over half of them had been captured. As a last-ditch measure, the group ran toward Ricin Gorge in order to avoid complete annihilation. They hoped that the inability to use magic around it would give the soldiers pause, and their caution would overrule their desire to capture more slaves. It was a complete gamble. There was no telling if the soldiers would tire before the remaining rabbitmen were eaten by stray monsters. However, contrary to all expectations, the Imperial troops continued to give chase. At the eastern and western ends of the gorge were stairs cut directly into the cliffs, allowing one to descend safely. Most of the troops went back, but they left a battalion to guard the stairs. Once the rabbitmen came under attack by monsters, they would have no choice but to run right back into the waiting soldiers' arms. As expected, monsters eventually came to attack the rabbitmen. Deciding they would rather surrender to the Holshire Empire than be eaten, the Howlia were ready to run back even if it meant slavery. However, the monsters would not allow them such a luxury, and instead chased them deeper into the ravine. And so, the rabbitmen were trapped within the gorge, forced to constantly run around to survive. Before we knew it, our group of 60 had been whittled down to 40. At this rate we'll all be killed. Please, please, you have to save us, I'm begging you. The grief on Shay's face was nothing like the comedic expressions she'd had before when she was crying. The trio looked disinterested. Hajime was dozy, indicating he found the story boring. Yu was still the same. Rimuru had a blank look. No, Hajime, time itself came to a halt. Or at least, that was what it felt like. Shay's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Her mind unable to comprehend what had just come out of Hajime's mouth. It was only when Hajime started getting ready to power up Stife again that she finally came back to her senses and started protesting. Wait a second. Why? Isn't the normal reaction to smile reassuringly and say, oh, you poor thing, don't worry. I'll save your tribe, or something. Even I'm starting to get fed up with this. What kind of heartless monster abandons a beautiful girl alone in this dangerous gorge? Hey, quit ignoring me. I won't let you get away no matter how hard you try, Shay. The trio ignored Shay's complaints and Hajime tried to start Stife again, but was stopped when the bunny girl threw herself at him once more. The solemn rabbit that had been sitting there moments ago vanished, and the worthless one returned to take its place. Just throw her, Rimuru said to Hajime, making Shay flinch as she slowly got off Hajime while shaking. She can't be blamed. Rimuru, despite it all, his overly relaxed attitude and tone of speech, was a leading figure in a major war for decades, as well as had a history of being a ruler. Even without his haki, he exuded an extreme air of maturity, power, pride, arrogance, and dominance. Aside from that, the fear of Rimuru was still fresh in her mind. It seemed impossible for her to defy him. So, what do I get out of saving your family, Hajime? Why you want a reward, rabbit? Are you for real? What did you expect? There's no way you thought someone would help you for free with your absurd request, Rimuru. You've been exiled from your old kingdom, are on the run from the Holshire Empire, and are considered dangerous elements by every other member of your species. So far, it sounds like all I get for saving you is a heap of trouble. Besides, even if I do get you out of this gorge, where are you going to go? From the sounds of it, you're all doomed to get captured anyway. So, are you going to ask for my help with that too? Protect you from the Holshire Empire until you make it all the way to the mountains, Hajime? She should consider things on our perspective too, instead of focusing all on her issues while ignoring just how unreasonable she's being. She's taking this way too one-sidedly. Hey, we have our own goals too, you know? Carrying someone as troublesome as you around would make our job harder, Rimuru? But I saw you protecting us, Shay. You mentioned that before. Is it some sort of future sight, Rimuru? Huh? Oh, yes. My special magic is called Future Sight, and it lets me see into possible futures. As in, if I choose X, Y will happen kind of. It also just activates by itself when I'm in danger. Though, the futures I see aren't absolute. Still, I promise I'll come in handy. You'll see danger coming thanks to my Future Sight. I used it back there too. It showed me a vision of you guys saving me. I'm so glad the future I saw of meeting you three actually came true, Shay. If you see futures, shouldn't you have been able to save your family, Hajime? Shay twitched at the question as she looked down before responding. The future is something we always have the power to change. At least, that's what I believe. But there are some things you can't change no matter how hard you try. I realize that again every time I failed to change something. I couldn't change the one future I really wanted to. Maybe if I just tried a little harder, I could have. Shay. As the atmosphere was turning sad and depressing. Then, what if I tell you my refusal is one of those things you can't change? No matter what, Rimuru openly said with a soft smile. Another silence spread throughout the gorge. Rimuru was so casual and merciless and straightforward with it that it made it more believable he wasn't playing around. Shay was completely stunned, her mind numb. Sadness, despair, hopelessness. Her entire world looked ready to sink. She looked ready to cry once again. As the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive and depressing, Yu for the second time, unexpectedly came to Shay's rescue. Hajime, sensei, let's help her. Yu, why, Hajime? Yeah, why? Rimuru, she can guide us through the sea of trees, Yu. I think I can see through it, though, Rimuru. Yu grimaced as she remembered Rimuru had flawless awareness and perception. In truth, she wanted to help this useless rabbit, having sympathized with her condition. Your personal feelings? Rimuru broke the silence, having seen through Yu's purpose. Yes. Please. Yu, Rimuru and Yu stared at each for a while. After a second, he looked at Hajime, to which he only sighed. Ha. It seems genuine and it's coming from a precious student. Alright, let's do it, Rimuru. Rejoice, rabbit. We have a deal. You guide us through the sea of trees, while we protect you and your family. That's it. Break the agreement, and I'll burn the entire forest, Hajime. Oh okay. Shay had been quietly observing all this time, tensed to the max as this unbelievably casual conversation in the middle of an execution ground was the talk that was going to decide both her and her family's survival. Awawawawawa. Please, let me down. I'm sorry, Shay. Shut up, worthless rabbit. Hajime, Yu, Rimuru. Shay was currently floating above them, with Hajime and Yu on Stife, as well as Rimuru not too far above them. They're all traveling at the same, leisurely pace. As for why Shay was floating instead of riding in Stife or having a nice, comfortable cloud sofa, well, it's because you asked Rimuru to. Right after they agreed to help her, Shay is so frequently ignored that she pointed out her superior chunk of tits to you, which, well, didn't end too well. She nearly got killed once again as Hajime and Rimuru didn't even bother to help. And so, per Yu's request, this is the method of travel Shay was put in. After a while, a distant group of rabbitmen can be seen, surrounded by flying creatures above. They were in a complete disarray, running all over the place. They looked rather pathetic. I'll go on ahead, Rimuru. Okay. Hajime and you. In order to settle things fast, Rimuru used instantaneous movement, which was the ability to travel any distance without regards to time. I went ahead to the future rabbit-themed slaughter ground, floating in suspension in the sky. The rabbits below me are a disorganized mob, with dozens of wyverns circling on them ready to eat them up as rabbit foods. I guess I should do it, after all. I began to cast two certain magics I invented in the past. Argos and Megiddo. I was planning to use Argos for surveillance purpose anyway to make our travels easier, so now that I'm using Megiddo, might as well do it now. And with the wyverns as the targets, dancing, swirling rays of light rained down from the heavens, repeatedly reflecting and refracting near the ground and plunging through the monsters before they could react. It remained as soundless as it had appeared. At the speed of light, all monsters below were immediately massacred. Even in this area where mana was dispersed, Megiddo continued to work. Since the water lenses used were in the stratosphere, the mana dispersing property did not reach that high. Even if it did reach, by applying an ultimate skill's effects into the magic, it wouldn't be dispersed no matter what. By manipulating its heat values with Ural's law manipulation, the heat blasts that was normally thousands of degrees were now hundreds of thousands of folds more. Of course, some measly mindless beasts has no chance at all. I landed in front of the dumbstruck rabbit people with a swish faster than sound. As they noticed me, all of them had two expressions: fear and admiration. Affection, they seemed smitten by me, but I got used to it. Nonetheless, now is not the time for that. They all stared at me for a moment before they heard shouts that belonged to a voice which they were very familiar with. You guys, I brought help. Shay, rabbits? The unfamiliar sounds of Stife, as well as Stife itself, the easy destruction of the monsters that chased them around, as well as the androgynous beauty that landed in front of them. Faced with all those all at once, the rabbitmen were a little slow to react, their brains still processing things. The first one to get back to their senses was some rabbit dude that seemed to be the leader around here. Not long after, Hajime and Yu arrived, along with Shay, who fell to the ground because of Rimuru resetting her gravity. Can't you treat me like a woman, Shay? I heard something like that, but I just chose to ignore it. Hick. Shay, it was then that the old bunny dude came to us. Shay, are you okay, Rabbit Daddy Chief, Dad, Shay? Sure enough. The chief of the tribe and she his father. They hugged each other and then explained the situation to the other rabbitmen. After a lot of explaining, Cam turned to the trio and spoke. Is it okay to call you Hajime Dono, you Dono, and Rimuru Dono? I am Cam, the head of the Howlia and Shay's father. I thank you very much for helping us in this crisis. As a father and as a chief, Cam. He bowed in thanks. The other Howlia did the same. Don't bother to thank me. That was in exchange for guiding us through the sea of trees. Don't forget that. Besides, aren't you trusting us too easily? Even though demi-humans and humans don't have a good relationship, Hajime? You have Shay's trust. That's why we trust you too. That's because we're a family, Cam. I see, hee. It's okay, Dad. Even though Hajime-san and Rimuru-san are cruel to everyone and uses people easily, they will at least keep their promise to protect us, Shay. The rabbit tribe along with the trio were now currently traveling through the Great Raisin Canyon. Various monsters were trying to attack them, but they all received headshots or were drilled a hole in the head by Rimuru. All the rabbit men looked at them as their heroes, especially the children. Fu, Hajime-san, the children idolize you, you know? Why don't you wave to them? Otherwise, you will lose to Rimuru-san, Shay. Indeed, Rimuru was talking to the children with a smile, boasting about his greatness and whatnot, and they were giving him many compliments. Kekekeke. Shay and Hajime Dono are already close. Looks like Shay is already at that age, Well, if it's Hajime Dono, that's a relief, Cam. Bang. After walking for a while, they finally reached the exit of the canyon. When they got there, Shay called out to Hajime. As for Rimuru, he grew bored, so he reproduced a manga from his memories and began rereading it. Hajime and Yu were used to it, so they didn't question anything. Hajime-san, let's say there are some Empire soldiers here. What will you guys do, Shay? What do you mean by that? Hajime, it's that the Empire soldiers are of your race, so, if they attack us, will you be able to fight them, Shay? Rabid, haven't you seen the future? Rimuru asked as he flipped a page. Yes, I have seen you facing the soldiers of the Empire, Shay. Then what's the problem? Rimuru interrupted, confused. I want to confirm that you are okay fighting your own race to protect us rabid men. Shay. Shay had seen several possible futures and wanted to make sure she was headed in the direction of the best possible future. Yes. The trio, the three of them responded without hesitation. Hajime didn't care which race it was. He would kill anyone who stood in his way, and Yu would do whatever Hajime wanted. Rimuru is superficially egocentric, whimsical, indifferent, and was of a truly neutral alignment, so he does whatever he wants. We have no problem killing humans. Hajime, but they are the same race as you, Shay. Isn't your tribe also being persecuted by demi-humans, Yu? It's just that, Shay, you've got something wrong, the basics, Hajime. Huh, Shay? All the Howlia looked confused. You see, you are my guides and we have a contract. I will protect you, and anyone who gets in the way will die, no matter if they are humans, demons or demi-humans. Just don't forget that this protection won't last forever, Hajime. I understand. Shay, they were at the entrance to the forest when they saw an Imperial army tent. Hey, really? Are those the fugitives? If that's so, I can take souvenirs home. There were 30 soldiers there, and the one who seemed to be the leader spoke this in an arrogant tone. Wasn't that one with the light blue hair the one the commander was after, human? Oh, looks like we got lucky. Jihihi. Human too. He gave a disgusting laugh and approached Hajime. To these soldiers, demi-humans were seen as things, and they didn't care about their welfare one bit. Huh? Why is a human with the rabbit men? Are you a slave trader? Hand them over now and we won't report you, human? I refuse. Hajime, you said something, human too? I refuse. They are under my protection. I recommend that you turn around and go back to the Empire, Hajime. Boy, watch your words. Don't you know who we are, Human 3? Yes, I do. I just said, go back to the Empire, Hajime. All the soldiers were staring at Hajime, forming an atmosphere of tension. Kufufu, you are naive, boy. I will teach you the truth of this world. This beautiful blonde lady, I will rip off your arms and legs while I rape her in front of you, human. Yu was about to kill the guy, but Hajime stopped her and spoke to the man. Bottom line. You guys are my enemies, right, Hajime? Huh. You still don't understand. Kneel down and ask for forgiveness now, if not, human. Bang, the leader's head was blown off by Hajime. Wah, all troops, prepare for combat, human too. As expected of Imperial soldiers, even though they were scumbags, they were quick on the uptake and immediately started preparing. Before they could do anything meaningful, however, Rimuru used his law manipulation and incinerated the soldiers, leaving not even ashes and smoke left. Therefore, before the Imperials could understand, perceive, comprehend, or move, they all got blazed away. Except for one, that is. In the end, there was only one soldier left for whom they had a few questions. Hajime approached him with Donner in hand. As I thought. If they are humans, I don't even need to use lightning field. Just the ammo is enough, Hajime. He muttered as he approached. Hayek, don't come any closer, I don't want to die. Somebody, help me, Human 25? The soldier tried to beg for his life. Hajime reached in front of him and aimed Donner at his forehead. The soldier trembled with fear. I'll do anything, Human 25, really? Then tell me where the other rabbit men are, Hajime. If I tell you, will you spare me, Human 25? He spoke with a trembling voice. Do you think you're in a position to make demands? Maybe I should kill you right now, Hajime? I'll speak. They must have been transported. They must be coming out of the forest by now, Human 25. Okay. Hajime, bang, the man died. The rabbit men lost their breath at the merciless behavior. Fear appeared in some of them. Shay even asked him in a trembling voice. You didn't, could you have just let that one go, Shay? It was Rimuru who answered first, truly dumbstruck. You guys are too soft and naive. I think I can see why you're always easy targets of violence and slavery. If you hate being taken advantage of, at least try to change yourselves. Instead, you all stay the same and go crying to others to save your sorry fluffy asses. Rimuru said, peeking out his book inside, glancing at the Howlia tribe. It earned him complicated looks from the rabbitmen as they all looked down. Rimuru truly mean that. He was formerly the same. There were times where he was too soft and it backfired real bad. Ha! Hajime meanwhile stared at Shay with an amazed expression. She was wanting to simply forgive those who enslaved her family members. Hajime was about to say something, but you stopped him. Once the fight started, the outcome was clear. Even if they were weak, they would have been a nuisance sooner or later. It's just that. Shay, in the first place, how can you look at Hajime and Sensei like that when they did it to protect you? That's borderline being ungrateful. It seems that you was angry with the rabbit men directing negative feelings at Hajime and Rimuru after they protected them. The tribe was left feeling guilty and Rimuru broke the silence. Alright, then. I'll go over and rescue the others. I'll also go ahead and try to see the giant tree to check if it really is the labyrinth. In the meantime, you guys go ahead. I'll catch up with you later. Rimuru. Good idea. We'll meet at Verbergen. Hajime, bye, Rabbitman. Before they could react, Rimuru already flew, leaving a trail of light and afterimages as he flew through the winds. See ya, mongrels. Came the echoing sounds from the distance. So, you actually didn't need a guide? Shay, he didn't. We do. Hajime and you, I see.